government says it will set up an independent inquiry to be led by a retired judge into allegations by U.S. Ambassador that Pretoria sent arms to Russia. Ruben Brigitte told the media in Pretoria yesterday that a vessel, it's called Lady R, it docked in Simonstown last December and was loaded with weapons. But Pretoria has rubbished these claims, saying there is no evidence to back it up. The presidency says the ambassador's accusations undermine the spirit of cooperation that characterized recent engagements between the United States government officials and South African officials who were sent to Washington by President Cyril Ramaphosa, led by Dr. Sidney Mufamadi. The presidential spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya, has accused Brigitte of poor diplomatic skills.
The relationship between South Africa and the U.S. remains strong, robust and dynamic. However, as the President said in the House, the government is looking into the matter. There is no evidence that has been provided to date to back up the claims of any weapons sale by South Africa to Russia. But as it has been undertaken, the matter will be investigated. There will be an announcement in due course with regard to the nature and format of that investigation.
All right, so let's try and get some context or perhaps an understanding of what really happened and what does this mean, importantly, for the relations between South Africa and Washington. We're joined now by City Press writer Erika Gibson. Erika, good morning to you. You always have your ear to the ground, especially when it comes to military operations in this country. Take us back to that night of the alleged loading of weapons into the Lady R, that's the ship, the Russian ship. Did this happen? What do we know?
Good morning, Uli, and all your viewers. It happened on the 7th of December last year.
Yeah.
What we know is that it happened after dark. The vessel was sailing without its automatic identification system switched on, which was suspect to start off with.
So the GPS was switched off?
In maritime terms, they're talking about the AIS. It's the automatic identification system that vessels signal where they are and who they are. So what was significant, it was an evening of load shedding. So the whole of Simonstown was pitch dark. The vessel came into the Simonstown naval base. It was accompanied by one of the Navy's frigates, the SASP Nkop. There were lots of vehicles and lots of security. There were military police. There were all sorts of vehicles moving in and out. And everything started happening after dark. Again, that was suspicious. The dockyard itself was lit up, as was the vessel. So, despite being in the dark, everybody staying around Simonstown with a clear view of the dockyard could pretty much see what was happening. With civilian registration numbers, Mpumalanga registration numbers, just for interesting sake.
Sorry, Erika, let me interrupt you there for a second. You broke off a little bit. We only got the bit about registration numbers. What were these? Are these vehicles?
It was two large trucks, quite significant trucks with Mpumalanga with civilian registration numbers, which moved into the to the area after dark. There was also a crane, a mobile crane that moved in, and the cranes were working basically through the night. So whatever was offloaded and uploaded must have been quite significant because it carried on for the rest of the night, still under the cover of darkness. And what we also know afterwards was that the vehicles which were at the base on the night normally transport arms corps consignment of armaments. So that said, the civilian vehicles was waiting at the Navy's sports grounds. So the whole thing was pretty much run like a military operation.
Yeah.
What we subsequent to that could establish from sources, and I think the Minister of Defence also alluded to it, was that it was an overdue order for armaments from Russia, and that it was meant for the special forces. Now, any military doesn't talk about its special forces and the armaments and so on. So that could have been pretty secretive about the consignment.
All right, Erika, I need to stop you there for a moment. So you're saying that these are comments from our defense minister saying that this was an overdue military or rather armament delivery. Who was the recipient?
The recipient was the South African military, and my information was that it was a consignment of AK-47s and some other armaments, Russian manufactured, obviously, which was meant for the military operation in Cabo Delgado, the SADC deployment in Cabo Delgado, to standardize the armaments used in Mozambique, because the Mozambican Defense Force use AK-47s.
Yeah.
So the consignment was also taken to Special Forces stores at one of the Special Forces bases. So that's what we know about the consignment that was offloaded. What was uploaded is the issue at hand, and which is what we don't know. There's been various bits and pieces of what was uploaded, that it might have been ammunition propellants, because Russia was sorely in need of something like that. But the only manufacturer of those propellants in the Western Cape is Rheinmetall Denel. And Rheinmetall vehemently denied that they would have supplied anything to Russia at the time. So what's also significant, after the vessel left Simonstown again on the 9th of December, usually trip up to Beira and Port Sudan, and then it moved towards the Suez Channel and so on. It was in no hurry. In fact, I don't even know whether it went back to Russia at any particular time, because that vessel was operating on the east coast of Africa. It's a commercial vessel. It belongs to Transmorflot, which is a commercial Russian company, but unfortunately also one of the sanctioned ones, because they've been suspected of assisting in the armaments meant for Russia in Ukraine.
Yeah.
So that is what we know. The Minister of Defence at the time said she didn't know all the particulars, but that she would provide feedback as soon as it was confirmed.
Yeah.
We don't know whether there were customs present on the evening, and I know that there was I wouldn't call it an investigation, but I know that SARS would have been looking into it as well.
Yeah.
To just check whether all the paperwork was in order. You have all the manifest, the shipping manifests, the bills, everything was supposed to be in order. We don't know if that happened, because we never got the promised feedback after the minister gave a very brief reference that it was an overdue order, that it dated back since before COVID, and that's why it was offloaded.
All right. Let me pick up on this now. I'm sorry to interrupt your line of thought there.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
So the defense minister would have given this commentary in December at the time of this delivery, if you like?
There was quite a bit of news coverage at the time and many questions. And obviously it was December, so it was a difficult time and so on. But that was the undertaking that she gave. And I think the opposition parties did their damnedest best to also, by means of fires and questions, to determine what exactly did we have here. So there's been various attempts to just establish really what was transferred on that specific night, both off and uploaded.
So here's an interesting question then, Erika. We know that there is a specific committee that sits with the minister in the presidency that basically, if you like, rubber stamps any military armament, any trade.
The NCACC.
Aha. Yeah. That's the committee. Remind viewers who heads up that committee, and would South Africa, particularly the Defense Department, not be aware if this transaction was flagged at that committee or was known about at that committee? I guess I'm struggling to frame this question, but you tell us, as an expert in this field, whether this trade or this armament given to Russia, that committee would not have known about it.
Well, one would certainly expected to know about it, because before you enter any armament consignments into South Africa, you need to have permits, both import and export. And you need to apply to the NCACC, which is the National Conventional Arms Control Committee, which is headed by the minister in the presidency normally. I can't say for the precisely whether it is the minister in the presidency at the moment. It was also Minister Lamola, I think, at some stage, who was the chair. But it consists of all the security cluster and all the departments involved in armaments. So they normally issue, well, not normally, by law, they have to apply for import and export permits for any form of armaments. So the NCACC at the time denied that there were any permits issued for armaments and any defense material meant for Russia.
Yeah.
That's what the official line is on that. And also, if you listen to what the ambassador said, they were talking about armaments. I'm a little bit skeptical about the armaments side of it, because our armaments industry is not in a very healthy state. And I'm not sure what we have at this stage that would be of any assistance to the Russians. In all honesty, we do know that it couldn't have been. It definitely wasn't that it was huge guns and tanks and it wasn't anything heavy, because then the movement of it would have been clearly visible.
Yeah. Well, this is what then I think gets South Africans into a state of confusion, Erika. Yeah. The president saying, we are going to investigate this. In fact, there's going to be a judge that is going to head up this investigation. Is that necessary if we know that we never did such a thing?
Well, I suppose just to be on the safe side, we're 6 months after December already, and my logic tells me that the defense minister would have a very clear idea of what transpired on that particular evening by now, and so would SARS. So if a judge is necessary to actually get all these reports together and then present us with a single report on what all the different departments say, and from the NCACC, the SARS, Department of Defense, and then provide the public, not in secret, provide the public with a coherent and a proper explanation of what happened. Unfortunately, the suspicions are not going to go away, and it might have the severe consequences that we are now facing with this diplomatic spat.
Yeah.
Spat, I mean. I also want to say that just recently we had another a Russian aircraft that landed at Waterkloof. And my suspicion is that might have tipped the balance to some extent, because the official line was that the aircraft, it was a massive cargo aircraft, came to deliver some diplomatic mail. Which is quite possible, except that it's never been done that way before. Diplomatic mail is normally a diplomatic bag or a container or whatever. So why was there a need then to do it at Waterkloof, a military base?
Yeah.
So it just casts a very suspicious sort of veil over our relations with Russia.
Yeah.
And it's noticeable.
Yeah.
Not only noticeable by us who write critically about these things, but it's noticeable on a diplomatic level, and it can have severe consequences for the country as a whole.
Yeah.
And that's why we should be worried.
Erika Gibson, let me thank you very much for such detailed information. As I said to you earlier, she watches with a very keen eye military developments in our country. Thank you so much for this information. She writes for City Press, an investigative reporter there, quite senior in fact.